item as it stands.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
But KGW will spend it whatever way they get.
It's my printer. It's my bike.
Depends on what else has to be done. So
We're talking, was contact, why do you need to make the presentation? No. Okay, okay.
Are you ready?
Oh, thanks. Sorry.
Did you say go, Mrs. Rick? Okay. All right, it's 7:02. It is Monday, December 3rd, 2018. Regular meeting for the City of Woodland. If I could get everyone to silence your cell phones and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Is this on? Can everybody hear me? Yeah, it's coming out? Okay, thank you. All right, Mrs. Ripley, please take the roll.
Councilmember Graham?
Here.
Councilmember Round?
Here.
Councilmember Plaza?
Here.
Councilmember Chapman?
Here.
Councilmember Hubbard?
Here.
Councilmember Benjamin?
Here.
Councilmember Fredericks?
Councilmember Fredericks has called in this evening multiple times, even called me again on the way over here to remind me he would not be here. Just to make sure that he would get an excused absence from council. Chair will accept a motion to excuse Mr. Fredericks this evening.
So moved. Second.
Will the clerk please take the vote to excuse Mr. Fredericks?
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Councilmember Benjamin?
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza?
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Hubbard?
Aye.
I was hoping for one no, just for fun. All right. All right, Mr. I know. Mr. Fredericks has been excused. We have no presentation or proclamations this evening, but we are moving on to items, our communication from citizens for items not on the agenda. And we have Mrs. Darlene Johnson. Can you please step forward, state your name, and you can have 5 minutes. Well, wait. I see you on the next list as well. You've got 5 minutes.
For both lists.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean 5 each.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I came here tonight mainly because I wanted to talk about the budget, and I thought that the public utility tax was going to be on the agenda, and I didn't see it. Is it?
It's going to be action item F, as in Frank.
Okay, well then, if I'm for items not on the agenda now,
You signed up for both.
I know.
Okay. Items not on the agenda. Yes.
What was the other? Oh. Well,
You have 5 minutes.
to think about it, huh? No, one thing that I did want to bring up is that is a comprehensive plan on the agenda too?
No, not tonight.
Okay.
There was
what-
an open house this evening, a comprehensive plan from 1 to 6 this afternoon.
Well, I went to the sessions on the comprehensive plan, and I couldn't figure out one of the plans that I really liked, and it was difficult for me to use the form that he gave in order to take one of the plans and say what I liked and what I didn't like about it. And so I think when you're doing this, that in not only give those plans, because that might work easy for some people, it just didn't work for me. You ought to tell the people that if you've got ideas that you want to present, you can just write them and have that become part of it, because there wasn't a plan there that I really liked, and I couldn't figure out really easily to make one of them into one that I liked, with the exception, with what I wanted. So I planned on doing that anyway, but I figured you ought to give people that options, because there are several people two people that asked me about it, and I told them I couldn't help them because I couldn't do it myself, and I told them just to write something.
Okay.
But they didn't feel like that was what was wanted, so they were not as bold as I am, just doing what I wanted to do. So I don't know if they'll write, in other words. So I think we should make that more of an option.
Mr. Goddard, are folks able to go above and beyond the form and just submit what they believe should be an option?
Yes, so actually what I'm folding right now is the notice that's going out to emailing, and what it specifically says is you can give testimony in writing, fax, email,
Okay, good.
and anytime up to and including the public hearings, which are scheduled on December 20th, January 10th, and January 17th.
Okay.
So,
I only went to the one, and
Oh, yep.
when it didn't seem like that was asked for, it was mainly these
Yes.
plant, yeah.
and you went to the first one, and if you had said it at the first one, I would have done it for the other four.
I
but-
never thought of it.
So I'll do it.
Until I was-
I'll do it tomorrow.
Okay,
I will
good.
add it to the agenda tomorrow.
Mrs. Johnson, did you fail to give your opinion during that first meeting?
I didn't look at the form that you
Oh,
had to fill out.
I was going to say, I think there's something wrong.
And that survey is now available online as well. So
Okay.
there's a fill in the blank at the very end of the online survey that probably isn't in the paper one.
Okay.
Is that on the front page of the website?
It is on the front page and on the Community Development Comp Plan update.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else in the gallery who failed to sign up at the beginning of the meeting for items not on the agenda? Now's your opportunity to step forward. All right, seeing no one, moving on to items on the agenda. Mrs. Johnson, you're up again. You have 1 minute left. Yeah, you've got 5 minutes.
Well, I wanted to talk about the public utility tax. First, I don't feel like that is and I emailed just so it's a repeat a little bit, but I don't think it's really a correct tax or a tax that is appropriate, because public utility bills are made to cover the cost of the public utility. And it actually had to go to court for cities to put a tax on that would not go into the utility fund, but would go into the general fund. So it is legal, but that, just because it's legal doesn't make it correct. And I don't feel like it is appropriate to put a tax on something that no one can get out of for you to put into the general fund. The other thing is, I looked at it on businesses, and businesses pay like 39% of the cost, and they're nowhere near that number of business users compared to individual users. And so I did a printout, and Carol has it, of the different costs that different businesses are paying. And like the Oak Tree pays like $8,000 or $9,000. I didn't bring it with me. And Lineage pays $4,000. And it's my opinion that not one of you asked. You wanted to know what it would cost residents, but not one of you asked what it would cost businesses. And that's the thing that irritates me so much about the city of Woodland, is they don't seem to take business into consideration when you're doing things. It was the very first thing I thought of. I wonder how much of this tax is going to be put onto the business. Well, you look at it, and it looks like a small item, but it's not a small item. And in business, most businesses can cover their 10 large items, but it's the 1,000 little slits, that smaller items that you don't consider, that turns a profitable business into a non-profitable business. And those slits are like these tacks. You know, you just keep draining the pot that they come on. And a lot of businesses are in a situation where you're not able to pass those costs on. And sometimes they come right after the fact. And so you're in a hole when you try to start passing them on. And I want this town, I think that there's been a whole lot of things that have made this town be more friendly to business. That isn't one of them. That isn't one of them. And I don't want, we're coming from behind anyway, so I want us to be kind of a place where businesses want to come. It's pretty much our turn. Everybody around us has business. Everybody, Kalama, Richfield, they are doing more than we are, and it's our turn to do something, and the only way you do it is to be very business friendly. And once you get businesses and people get good paying jobs, everything works after that. It just, people who have good paying jobs buy things, and they, the business for commercial and goes along with when industry does good. So I would like us to be a business-friendly community. I do not want to be a bedroom community, which is what we're developing right now, especially with some of those plans. And I just hope that you vote no on that.
Thank you, Mrs. Johnson. All right, moving on to Mrs. Jennifer Ray Keene. Did I get it right? Did I get it right? Yes. Okay, just making sure. I always want to go the other way.
I come with either name.
Okay, gotcha.
So I'm Jennifer Ray Keene with the Executive Director of the Port of Woodland, and I'm addressing action item H, which is our submission for the Guild Road Industrial Park 2, requesting your approval on this item. Just to give you a little bit of background, this gets into our mission, which is to develop jobs, and something we desperately need to balance out here, obviously with the residential growth. This is our 16-acre park, which is where the Boy Scout Orchard is and where our new administration office. Part of this binding site plan also approves the infrastructure that goes to Guild Road 1, which is kitty corner to that, which is a 12-acre park. So approving this one kind of goes with approving Guild 1 in the future, which staff will be taking action on. And just so you know, we have submitted a $4.8 million grant request to the Economic Development Administration. And so your approval goes a long way for us to get that approval that they will be hearing on Thursday. So it's really vital that we move these projects forward. The port is set to develop these projects as soon as we find out about our funding. We plan on starting this infrastructure project as soon as we can get those contracts taken care of with EDA, and we will be going after state money as well. The overall project of just Guild 1 and Guild 2 is a $10 million investment for the port to get this constructed, just the infrastructure. It will require additional investment of $12.8 million at Guild 1 and $13.9 million of private investment at Guild Road 2. So this is a very significant project to Woodland and to our tax base in bringing jobs here. So we would appreciate your approval on this project. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else in the gallery who failed to sign up at the beginning of the meeting for items on the agenda? Now's your opportunity to step forward. All right, seeing no one else. Moving on to agenda approval.
Mayor,
Yes.
can we move the voucher approval until next meeting? We got a little hiccup on the getting them in today, for this meeting.
On the consent items? Oh. Okay, gotcha. All the consent items are just the vouchers. So consent item A. Okay. All right. Chair is looking for approval of the agenda with the exception of consent item A.
Move to approve agenda as presented with the exception of A.
Item A. I'll second it.
All right, moved by Councilmember Humberg, seconded by Councilmember Rounds. Will the clerk please take the vote?
Councilmember Rounds?
Aye.
Councilmember Hubbard?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza?
Aye.
Councilmember Benjamin?
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
All right, the agenda has been approved. Moving on to reports of City Council.
Well,
Mrs. Graham.
I'll go first because she probably has more
Okay.
to talk about, but,
Wow.
I mean, it all
Hey,
depends.
ladies, everyone gets a chance. Everyone gets a chance.
I know, but mine's going to be kind of quick. So I rang the bell for 3 days this past week for Salvation Army in front of Safeway. Made the first deposit today, and it was a nice little deposit that we made. So, and this goes for, we ring the bell for Salvation Army. We give the money to them, and they let us send kids that would normally not get a chance to go to camp from Woodland. So it's a very, up to Camp Arnold, which is a very nice for 4 days. So
That's awesome.
anyway, that's what I was doing this past week. So
Awesome. How many kids did we send last year?
8, I believe.
I say we, like I did it, but
Yeah,
oh,
8.
we say 8. Nice. And that happens in the summertime?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's awesome. Okay. That's it? That's all you
Yep.
had? Oh,
Yep.
okay. Wow. All right.
I told you mine was
Yeah.
quick.
Did you sign? What time? Did you sign me up for 11 o'clock?
Yes.
11 o'clock.
What, 11 o'clock?
What time did you sign me up for?
I didn't. I
Not
just
too
said-
early.
I just said Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve. I think we take the 11 o'clock shift.
Okay. Perfect.
Like the 11 to 1 or something.
Okay.
Please.
Got it.
Thank you. Please come throw tomatoes. No, that's your opportunity to come get me. Mrs. Graham.
This past Saturday, the Moose Lodge, the ladies of the Moose and the gentlemen of the Moose Lodge, and I think the city probably had a little bit to do with that as far as helping them put the lights on the tree for that. Anyway, 6 o'clock, they lit the tree downtown. Santa and Mrs. Santa Claus was delivered, and our Miss Woodland was delivered by the fire department on a lovely fire truck. And I think it was a very successful event because in conjunction with them, the Planners Day Committee is also working with them. And we provided lots of nice flyers that were delivered through the school district, elementary schools, I just believe, up to 6th grade. Anyway, I think that probably helped with the crowd. It was awesome. It was a great evening. It didn't rain. The Christmas tree is beautiful downtown. And I have had word that from the ladies involved with it, that they were very pleased with the turnout. So I think with us all working together with that made a very nice event for our community this year. And we have a new Planners Day theme. It is
Miss King.
Planters Day, a family tradition. So if you are, any group, organization is going to be involved, we would love to have floats for our parade in June.
All right.
And I think that's all I did besides baking cookies, so.
It's all right. Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm doing cream puffs for the auction on Thursday night, so just thought I'd let you know. For
So
here.
I won't be there.
Game's
Thursday.
on. Who's gonna get the most money? Carol.
Can I vote by proxy? Is that-
Yeah, you could.
Damn. Oh, wait a second. That's. God. Is that 12 months of cream puffs?
Yes,
And you wonder why I can't fit into my pants.
not 12 days of Christmas, but 12 months of cream puffs.
Jeez. I was quite shocked not to see any cookies sitting up here when I came in tonight. Thank you for not though.
I know, I
A
thought
little
about
disappointed,
it.
but still thankful. All right.
I didn't have any meetings. No, that's not true. I had a call executive board meeting, but that was.
Okay. All right then. That was easy. All right. Moving on to reports of standing committees. Public Works.
Yes, we had a meeting this evening at 5:30. On the water, we on the 2016 improvements to the booster station, bid awarded to Stellar J contract to be signed tonight by the city attorney and the mayor to provide notice to proceed to Stellar J contract, addendum signed and in place for Gary and Osborne's engineering support on the project. The miscellaneous for that, they finished the lagoon cleaning this week. Also, water general info is the hydrant testing was completed for 1/3 of the hydrants, and everything come out great on those, even though they hadn't been done in 3 years. The pressure and everything was up to par. They're going to be doing, they thought they'd get more done, but they're going to be doing the rest of them in the spring. Scott Avenue Water Railroad Crossing, we have a draft permit for the review from the railroad, and Tracy got that earlier today, so she's going to be going over that. For the sewer station, lift station number 5, addendum to Gary and Osborne contract signed. Tappanee Inc. notice to proceed issued on 11/27 of 18, and on-site meeting scheduled for 10 a.m. on Thursday, the 10th of January, with completion expected in January, somewhere in January. Will extend into February if review and manufacturing is delayed. General sewer plan, it was submitted, bill for Fox completed report. We reviewed, and it has been sent to Dave Knight at the Department of Ecology on 11/29 of 18. Now waiting for his review. Street cleanup, street sweeping will begin this week, so I think they put out notices for people to make sure that they don't park on the street. Also on streets, the Exit 21 feasibility study project, meeting with WASDOT on 12/4 of 18 to review draft for RFQ on Exit 21. Street closures, we did replace the street dead-end barricades on west end of Meriwether down by the pool house. It was kind of looking pretty ratty, and so they put new wood in down there. Sign and revenue. No parking signs installed along Robinson at New High School. We installed 2 25-mile-per-hour signs and flagged them on Columbia Street, which is over by Safeway, and painted yellow for the Hawthorne House residents so that it would be a little more safe for them to cross the street there. Potholes repaired on repair on Rhododendron and Lakeshore Drive. Asphalt repair projects. Meeting with Cowlitz County this week to go over the street inventory and decide what streets will be chip sealed this next year in 2019. Facility, City Hall, roof replacement started on 11/5 of 18 and completed in November. Now going through inspection process. And the public workshop, the roof has been repaired, so that doesn't leak anymore. And Parks, Horseshoe Lake, I think Tracy has a slideshow. Well, Tracy's not here. She had to step out this evening. She had an emergency. So I think Pete's going to show some slideshows on that. And Gord Park, they continue to battle graffiti, and hopefully with the cold weather coming, they'll be a little too cold to be down there painting too much. So Hoffman Park, that's done, and they've submitted for reimbursement from the port, and Tracy has photos of that this evening also. Other public works, downtown put up Christmas tree lights and decorations, added 14 new strings of lights, and they've got 14 new strings of lights, and they've got some on order. Handed out holiday specs for the Christmas tree lighting ceremony, and she's got pictures for that also. Also added a reindeer and lights at Roundabout on SR 503, and added lights to the Public Works office. Thanks to the Port of Woodland for the use of their lift. And New Industrial Park, they're meeting with Gibbs and Olson and Mike Kornowski to discuss budget options. And engineering, they're interviewing 3 candidates next week for a new employee for the city, and that will be on Monday. And on the grants, the only thing I have is Port of Woodland presented approval for dollars for, and they completed the ADA ramp access, and I think that was at Kaufman Park or someplace. I'm not
Oh,
sure.
yes,
I'm
yes,
not
yes,
sure
yes,
what
yes.
they did with
Yes,
that, but
the
anyway.
port
Yes.
granted the city some
Right.
funds, and we got the parks up to speed. Yes, thank you very
And
much. Thank you very
our next
much.
meeting will be January the 7th at 5:30.
All right. Questions for Mrs. Rounds? All right, seeing none. Finance and General Government, Mr. Fredericks is not here, but I think he reported last meeting. Is that just a meeting notice? Next meeting will be on the 10th at City Hall at 5:30. Moving on to Public Safety.
We did not have a meeting in November. Our next meeting is December 17th, 4:30 at the police station training room.
Human Resources.
We also didn't have a meeting in November. Our next meeting will be on the 17th at 5:30 in the council chambers.
All right. Oh, all right. Reports of city officers. Council retreat's been set for January 12th, so I hope everyone has it on their calendar. In front of you this evening, you've got our 2018 legislative priorities that have been sent out, and we'll be having a workshop on the 17th to discuss council's legislative priorities and also recommendations from staff on where we should kind of be moving to. But it looks like this, blue sheet at top, similar to what we had last year. So I ask that you look those over. I don't know if there's a list of things that are out there for the legislative session already coming out, so I'll do a little bit of research to see what our legislators are planning. I also encourage you to go to the AWC website and look at what they're asking us to support to see if that's something we want to add to this. That's usually a conversation that council likes to have because council usually supports most of the priorities that AWC is supporting, with the exception of 1 or 2. So we'd want to list that out if we support all or none or all of them, with the exception of one or 2 of them. So please look that over and be prepared to discuss on the 17th. Where am I? Oh, tree lighting. Attended the tree lighting on Saturday. It was wonderful. So there was a ton of people down there. It was awesome. Santa was awesome. I asked him for a Learjet. He will not a choo-choo this year. I asked for a jet and a new airport, but to land it in. But he suggested a helicopter. Just because it'd be cheaper. So I did drive the roundabout and saw the deer that have been set up right out here on Lewis River Road. Happy to see that our wandering hands have not touched them yet this year and done inappropriate things with them. Hopefully those watching at home can monitor that and not allow that to happen this year. Quite funny, but completely inappropriate. The one thing I'm not seeing on the list here is Ladles of Love, and I don't know if we are they participating with us this year over at the community center? Are you aware? Okay, I saw a sign, but I failed to look to see where they were hosting it. But there's a program that's out there, Ladles of Love. I believe it's once a month. Yes.
Oh, I don't know so much about that one, but I know, and that was what Steve
Malden.
Yes.
Malden was involved in.
Is that, they're doing it
that's
up
his?
They're doing it up
At
at
the
his church.
Church, they
in
are
their
doing food.
community room.
Oh,
up
okay.
there.
Right. Well, I don't know if they're doing food, but they were giving food. Oh, they have a pantry that they are delivering food to people
Oh, good.
in
Okay.
need.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Well, last year they did it in town. It was
Right.
a grassroots effort. So, so they're doing it up at the church this year, you think?
And they
Well, I
named-
don't know about the serving of a meal.
Oh,
It's
okay.
food that they are passing out to people in need. If they
Okay.
need it, they have something set up at the church.
Okay. Okay. I'll get with Steve and ask him, or look for the sign. There's a sign that's popped up somewhere. I just wasn't sure.
They named it, but I don't remember what the
Yeah, I don't
name
remember what
of
he
it
said
was.
either.
Oh,
We are both doing a soup once a month, and we're passing out every weekend. Pass out to people that are-
Okay.
oh, okay. Where's the soup portion happening, or the meal happening?
It's my understanding it's next to the community.
It is at the community center, right? But I know they
Oh, okay.
had originally.
We did that last year, but I didn't remember hearing anything.
They had a reservation, I think, but I have to check.
Oh, okay. I'm just making sure they had a location. I just wasn't sure. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. I knew you were the feisty one. You just stand right up. All right. And I've got questions for me. I don't have a lot. Thanksgiving happened, and all right. Mr. Boyce, you're up.
Okay. First off, I wanted to report that we met with the Teamsters to bargain their contract. At our first meeting, it was very positive. We received their list of proposals, and I'm encouraged that we're going to get this done quickly. One of the questions they asked is if we could have it done before the end of the year. So we're going to move forward and hopefully come to some agreement. Our next scheduled meeting is December 18th, and we're also trying to get December 26th on the books. So positive development there, and we'll report more later. I also wanted to let you know the about $900,000 improvement to the water treatment plant. Our city attorney is going to be reviewing this document, the contract for such. They must charge by the page, but anyway, that's moving forward. So I just wanted everyone to know we're going forward on that. Other than that, I just wanted to get into the list of events. First off, there's a notice from the Liquor and Cannabis Board. We have some renewals happening. New Horizon Holdings at 1819 Sherman Way, Suite 101. Their marijuana production license is being renewed. So that's non-retail, so it's not store to buy marijuana, it's the production thereof. RGL Industries, 931 Gord Street. That's the marijuana producer tier 2 processor. Upcoming community and city events, December 3rd. Tonight, Travis Goddard, our community development director, held an open house to gain public input on the urban growth boundary and the update to the comp plan. It was from 1 to 6 today. We had a few interested parties who came around. There's also an open house tomorrow, December 4th, 4 to 9 p.m. So hopefully there are additional folks that can come in during those hours. Also, tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., we're having our mandatory all-city safety meeting. Following that, we have our open enrollment benefit fair to educate employees on what benefits are offered through the city and how to enroll and what benefit, how they can help. December 6th, Christmas party at Lewis River Golf Course. Also December 6th, the County Town Hall Part 3 at Woodland High School begins at 5:30 p.m. December 7th, 2018, the mayor will be holding a fundraiser event at the Bond Estate on Lewis River Road. See Mayor Finn for tickets. Proceeds will benefit the senior drug and alcohol-free party.
Class of 2021. Just want to clarify.
Okay.
Not the one that's coming up. Yeah, class of 2021. You can imagine I have some association with that class. Perhaps 2 graduates.
All right. And December 11th, the Downtown Woodland Revitalization Committee meets 9 a.m. at the Grange. December 8th, there's the VFW breakfast, and it's from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. We have blueberry pancakes, biscuits and gravy, scrambled eggs and sausage, orange juice and coffee. It's $8 for adults, kids 12 and under, $5. Come support veterans. All right, and December 20th, our planning commission is meeting. They're holding a public hearing regarding the comp plan amendment in growth scenarios. That's at 7 p.m. in this room. January 19th, 2019, the chamber installation banquet. That is happening at Heathman Lodge. February 13th, the FBRL fundraiser auction at the Red Barn. February 13th through 14th, AWC City Action Days in Olympia at the Capitol. And that's what I have this evening.
Which the action days that Mr. Boyce just spoke of will go with the legislative priorities. That's what we'll be taking up there to discuss with our legislators. So part of the goal is to reach out to the other entities that are here in the community, such as the Business Chamber, Rotary, the Pool Committee, all those that will be at the port, all those that will be approaching our legislators to make sure we have one unified voice going up there as close as possible as we can. So as Mrs. Graham stated about the tree lighting, all the entities working together, we ended up with a bigger turnout and a bigger celebration for their community. So,
Do you want me to share this and take this back to our chamber board?
sure. Oh, I didn't send that letter off yet. Yeah, I'll get that letter out before I leave. And I was going to pass this on to you as well, so you had a copy if you want it. Okay.
And may I add
Yes.
just a couple of things that are the chamber that Mr. Boyce reported on this Thursday night. It is an after hours that the chamber holds, and along with the Lewis River Golf, we'd like to invite you all to come to that. We also hold an auction to raise funds for the chamber, and as we stated, there are baked goods coming from Councilmember Round's house and my house. And I know we have Maxine Robin that will be playing our Christmas music, and I don't know what the list of other items are going to be up there, but I think there's probably some special things coming. I know they have secured local artists to do special Christmas ornaments that will be signed to be auctioned off also.
Oh, awesome.
So, and then along with the chamber, for our installation banquet, we are still looking for nominations for Citizen of the Year, Business of the Year, and Employee of the Year. So if anybody out there has somebody that's waited on them, has been very nice, a business, an employee, whatever, we would like to have nominations for those three honors to be filled. So you can either get applications at the Information Center, Chamber office, or online at the Chamber website.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Graham. The money raised for Chamber, where does that go? What's it used for?
To run
Or
our
just
our
the visitor center?
Visitors.
Okay.
Visitors,
Okay.
yeah.
Got it. All right. Questions for Mr. Boyce? All right. Ms. Randolph. Okay. Thank you, sir. Mrs. Ripp.
Another busy month in our clerk treasurer department. We processed a number of ordinances, including the 2019 property tax levy, a new fund that we created for the water treatment plant, HVAC electrical valve replacement project. We worked a lot on the ordinance for the public utility tax on the water sewer garbage recycling. Notices were sent various times and places for the October to December council meetings, as well as the public hearing that we had on the final budget, which was held on November 19th. For HR, we worked with city administrator on various personal matters. We're looking at city hall and employee scheduling. And we posted recruitment for the engineering tech or aide in the public works department. I'm working on random testing with our testing company for our CDL drivers and their physical exam renewals. We did receive our rate renewal for our Oregon Teamsters Health Insurance. We're looking at around a $60 increase. I think it's around a little over 3%. We attended the Teamster union negotiations with City Administrator Boyce. I did. We're working on the open enrollment preparation. That meeting is tomorrow for our benefit fair and our wellness event, following our safety meeting. And we processed our city's insurance, Clear Risk Solutions, also known as Propel, our broker for our 2019 insurance renewal. And we are still working on the budget prep until the budget is passed. And then there'll be some more work to do after that for distribution and notices. We are preparing our fourth quarter budget amendments, and those will be going to the Finance Committee. We're working on business license, adopting the business license threshold, and so that will be coming to the council, I believe, in the next meeting, and it will also be going to the Finance Committee. We are processing a number of public records requests and citizen comments that we track. And we're also prepping for amendments to our purchasing policy to get that updated. It's been a few years since we've done that. We've done an invoice cloud account review, and we're working on the prep for our surplus sale. We had Public Works go down, meet with some of the clerks, and we're getting everything organized down there. We're just about ready to release some dates, hopefully. I know it's been a while coming. We're also working on a contract with the Woodland Action Center for 2019 for our document recording fees, and the city attorney has some review of that, and so we're going to go back and forth on that with the Woodland Action Center. And that'll be coming to the Finance Committee as well. We're doing business license renewals for 2019, so those will be going out in the mail. And then we processed utility bills, payroll vouchers, financial reports, special events, and facility rentals upcoming for 2019. And then I just wanted to give a shout out to our payroll clerk, Audrey DeBilling, also Lori Cash, our clerk, Heather Ferguson, the clerk's office, for the participation and all the preparation they've done for the safety meeting and upcoming benefits fair and open enrollment. That's all I have.
Questions for Mrs. Rick? All right. Thank you for the report, Mrs. Rick. Chief Kelly.
We reached a milestone today. 5 years ago today, we moved into this building. So we're celebrating our 5th year in this building. During the month of November, I met with our recruit at CJTC. He's doing well. Unfortunately, or fortunately enough, the sergeant gets to see him a whole lot more than I do, but I plan on taking a trip up there in the next week or two just to make sure that he knows that we still care deeply for his efforts. A few other things that we did during the month of November, Brent Murray and I did a guest instructor gig at the high school talking about the 4th and 5th Amendments of the Constitution. And Donnie Connor, she stays way up on the Safe Kids and our car seat clinics and all that stuff. She's a bulldog when it comes to being involved in that. We made appearances at our Veterans Day assemblies locally here at the intermediate school and the high school, and that was Officer Palmquist, Officer Pedora, Donnie, and myself. I had an active threat discussion with members of the Jehovah's Witness congregation here at the office, and we gave them some ideas on security improvements and that type of stuff. Carla went to the Spillman Conference in Salt Lake City, Utah, and received her, and this is an acronym, you won't know what it is, but it's CSAC Administrator Certification. So we added another certification for her for administrative privileges, and that's a very sought-after certification. So she did a fantastic job and represents our department very well. I attended the WASPIC conference, lots of information, especially since the conference followed the election, and a couple of initiatives that are going to directly affect law enforcement in our state. Those were very good discussions. good training. We conducted a couple of applicant interviews and polygraph examinations on 2 entry-level employees. We're going to move those into background. Our Super Bowl is coming up on Saturday, Shop with a Cop. So Sergeant Keller has done a great job getting after that and making sure that we have enough police officers to really get after it and shop with these kids. Right now, I think Sergeant Keller gave me a little bit of information. We have officers from our A&A neighbors. We have officers from the State Patrol, DOC, Fish and Wildlife, and of course the usual suspects: Ridgefield, La Center, Kalama, and us. And did I leave anybody out, Sarge?
Is the big dog going to be there?
Who?
The dog will be there. All right.
Oh, yeah.
I don't.
Oh, yeah.
What, Sherman. Thank you. I couldn't come up with his name.
Sherman's going to be
Amazing.
there, and
Yeah.
his sister's going to be there too. So
Oh.
she's a pit bull. Yeah, yeah. So we're
Okay.
we're really looking forward
Nice.
to that.
Sherman and Ruby Sue.
Yep.
Nice.
Carla also got her lean certification. So it's and there's another certification on top of that with this a Sigma Green Belt certification. So Carla's moving us forward administratively, and we're going to keep pushing. She also received a Spillman Customer Service Award for our 15-year celebration with Spillman and other agencies in Cowlitz County. So she represented us there in Salt Lake and got that. Chris, Officer Moore, will graduate from the 778th Criminal Justice Basic Law Enforcement Academy class on March 6, 2019. And then he'll move into his field training. That'll be a 12-week gig for him, and hopefully I'm anxious to see who Chris is going to become in the city of Woodland. I'm really looking forward to that. Now, I don't often get to do this, but I'm going to call these two guys out and embarrass them a little bit. On November 22nd, we did a burglary investigation, and some of you may be intimately involved in that or have knowledge of that. But Sergeant Keller led his team along with Officer Swenningson, Officer Kelly, Officer Palmquist, and our reserve officer Pedora, tracking down suspects, tracking down leads. Obviously, it's still an open investigation, so we can't talk too much about it, but we're continuing to do that. And so that's what we have going on in the department. Oh, and on a side note, I got to witness a very good basketball game on Saturday night.
Bad calls.
They weren't bad calls. It was a great game. It went into overtime, and it was fantastic. Congratulations to the Woodland boys basketball team.
Yes.
They did a great job. So
They rallied at the end, didn't they?
they did.
Yes, they did.
And that's the end of my report.
Questions for the chief? Councilmember Chapman.
Kudos to you and your gentlemen on the November challenge, but I see in December, it didn't last too long into December, but everything's nice.
As soon as I woke up, it
Thank
came
God.
up. I was done. I was done.
I'm so thankful December 1st.
I was clean shaven for the basketball game on Saturday night.
And Officer Swenningson, what channel are you going to be on this evening at 11 that we can watch? Was that channel 8?
Yes, it was.
All right. I encourage all our viewers at home to tune in at 11. You're welcome.
I think I've had some of those tips though before.
Sorry I was late. Any other questions for Chief Kelly? All right. Thank you, gentlemen. All right. Chief Jackson.
Yes, thank you, sir. Our responses continue to be up above normal. We'll have some stats on that towards the end of the year. That's included an increase in calls to assist our neighbors in District 1, where they've had a few challenges during some work days getting some folks out. But those responses have gone well and have been well appreciated and coordinated with their members to serve everyone well there. This past month, we also had the opportunity to continue one of our ongoing campaigns for smoke alarms. We go through and provide smoke alarms for those folks in need, knowing that that's really the key piece for folks that have a fire in their home. The critical piece for survival is having a working smoke alarm. So we have a volunteer who spends a ton of effort on that program, going door to door and installing smoke alarms. Our Firefighters Association chipped in to help us purchase some more, as well as some donations we received from some residents. And Topper Floats and Dave Lester also provided some financial support to help make sure we can keep that program moving along with smoke alarms. In addition to that, our firefighters in town here partnered with some of our off-duty firefighters and held a coat drive at Walmart for the outreach program at the high school, and I believe they got over 100 coats, new coats donated for those in need, so that was a very positive thing as well. We have ongoing opportunities to work and have great relationships with the different city departments, Public Works, everyone in the city, but probably get to work closest with the police department just based off the nature of our jobs. So I want to take a moment and share a note that I received this afternoon regarding a call from last night or this morning. So it says, "Dear members of the City of Woodland, or the Woodland City Council, Tower 29, which is our unit that's permanently assigned here in Woodland, Tower 29 and Engine 23, which is in the center, responded to a cardiac arrest in the City of Woodland during the evening of December 2nd and were assisted by Sergeant Keller, who began compression on the downed victim prior to the arrival of Tower 29. For the minutes between the Tower 29's arrival and the next new company, Engine 23 from La Center, Sergeant Keller agreed to continue assisting with the cardiac resuscitation efforts. This selfless act coming after already having performed exceptional CPR compressions for the previous 4 minutes, all by himself. Sergeant Keller maintained exceptional compression performance, which allowed our Tower 29 crew to initiate advanced life support interventions much earlier than if he had not been present. These minutes make life-changing differences, and these early interventions are key to the positive outcome for these victims. Unfortunately, that was not the case with this patient. However, I do not want that to weigh out such serious incident and completely overshadow a truly valiant effort put forth by Sergeant Keller and the responding members of the Woodland Police Department for assisting Clark County Fire and Rescue with such a difficult incident. So thank you for all that you do, Josh Haldeman, firefighter paramedic. So.
Yes, absolutely.
So those responses are difficult, especially when it's not necessarily a positive outcome, but it is key to have those positive working relationships that we have, and it's always good to see those in effort. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Chief. Questions for Chief Jackson?
No, but I just want to add, we have an amazing, I'm going to cry, amazing police department. And I am so thankful for every one of the gentlemen that are here, also the fire department. Thank you.
Sergeant Keller?
I can't take all of the credit. I got tuckered out after about 6 minutes, and Officer Kelly took over.
We appreciate that.
It's a team effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard about it in my daily activities today, and I was going to mention it to the Chief on Wednesday, so thank you for bringing it up.
I think a lot of folks don't realize the number of resources it takes to work, even like a cardiac arrest incident. Usually it's to do it effectively, it's 5 to 6 people. So we'll have our initial crew, and then we have a second crew en route. But like they indicated, this is our key priority staffing place for a paramedic. By the officers being involved in helping with that until our second crew got there, gives the guys to put those paramedic skills to use and put those advanced life support efforts in a little bit earlier than they would if they had to do all the compressions and basic support all by themselves. So it's good to see the teamwork as usually happens.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Mr. Goddard.
Thank you. So
I'm sorry, just want to let the record reflect that Mr. Fredericks has joined us. Go ahead, Mr. Goddard.
So, community development, we've completed 4 of our 5 open houses for the comprehensive plan update. The last one will be tomorrow night from 4 o'clock till 9 o'clock. We are in the process, as you see me madly folding while I'm listening to the conversation. We're sending out 1,600 notices for the public hearings for both December 20th plus the January 10th and 17th planning commission hearings, so those notices should go out in the mail in the next day or so. We've also completed the public hearing for the Port Phase 2, which is the ordinance action item H on your agenda tonight, and the planning commission recommended approval of that. We also issued the Nigro Business Office decision on Loop, Belmont Loop. We've also issued the approval for Belmont Loop mini storage inside Belmont Loop. And we had the Bruce Young building permit was finally issued in the last, since our last meeting. So they are unfortunately, they know they're behind schedule and they will not be open by the start of next sales season that they were hoping to. That they will have they expect to have their business open by the time for the winterization and the service season, kind of at the end of the season. So they are, we should start seeing some more building activity on their foundation out there pretty quick. They'll get started. Other than that, we have some new applications that have come through the door. The Nishan Bonds 2 live-work units on 3rd Avenue. She submitted those building permits today. We also received an application for a 2-lot short plat on South Pekin. We're expecting the pre-application conference for Quail Homes, which is up across the street from the middle school, or the intermediate school, sorry. So it's between Lewis River Road and...
It's on Lewis River Road.
Yeah, sorry. And the Lewis River. We're also expecting the application to be finally complete for the site plan approval for Dutch Bros. And we're expecting an application for the RV Resort, which is just north of the Industrial Training Center. And lastly, I needed to make the public statement yet, because if you announce your goals, that you're more likely to achieve them. I promised Jennifer Keene that I will get the Phase 1 application or the approval out by Monday or Tuesday of next week for her to review. So I can't back out and I can't push it anymore. I will deliver for you.
Oh, that was a huge mistake, Mr. Goddard.
I have to do it. She's been very patient and she's cut me a lot of slack.
All right. Questions for Mr. Goddard? How many units are planned on Lewis River Road?
I don't know. They haven't submitted their pre-application
Oh, okay.
conference, but my understanding was it was about in the neighborhood of 36.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, sir. Mr. Boyce, since Ms. Coleman is not here, are you taking over for
Well, I'm going to show
Ms.
the
Coleman?
slideshow.
Oh, okay. Oh, we've got pictures? Okay.
So,
Oh, it is report night. She has to step it up a bit. You get to take all the credit for her now.
my thumb drive died. Let's try that again. So it might be a short report.
Oh, she'll be so pleased.
Let's see.
While you do that, I'll fill it. I'll fill the silence.
Okay.
I do want to go back to the tree lighting ceremony as well. Mr. Boyce and his 2 lovely daughters were there, came out for the tree lighting to see Santa on Saturday, which was nice. And thank you, Chief Jackson, for supplying the fire truck to haul everybody in. It was wonderful. And Miss Coleman's not here, but the Public Works crew and Miss Coleman taking the charge. I did have one citizen stop me out there on Saturday and got choked up over how wonderful the decorations downtown were, and how wonderful the lights looked. So it was very well received, and we appreciate all the hard work to bring the city into the holiday season.
We are not going to have a slideshow.
Wait, do you want to? I'll send flowers. Lots of flowers. Do you want to push her till next meeting? Do you want to push her?
Sure.
Is it without objection, or is council okay with adding that? Okay. Okay.
It was just the projects that they had completed in
Okay.
the city that she wanted people to be able to see.
Okay, gotcha. All right, we'll highlight those at the next meeting. All right. moving on to reports of advisory committees. Waikiakum Council of Governments, Ms. Humberg.
The COG did not hold a meeting in November because of lots of other meetings going on. And our December one is the 20, I can't remember what date it was. I have December on here.
Oh, it's in there,
Is December 20th.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And what about downtown Woodland revitalization?
Okay, well, I'll try.
All right.
Okay, we had our annual meeting, and the slate of officers were re-elected except for the secretary, and Loda Ross was elected secretary. We will not be having a meeting in December because of all the other things going on at Christmas time. So we're going to have a special meeting in January. I believe it's January 12th, and it will be held here, and there'll be lots of announcements and things going out because we want lots of people here so we can talk about what we need to do and what we're going to do next.
Is that the meeting Ms. Coleman attended?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. So more to come.
More to come.
All right, perfect. All right, questions for Ms. Humberg? Mrs. Graham?
Didn't you say January the 12th here for a meeting? Is it January the 12th here for a retreat?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is, and it's going to be prior to, because we want you guys to all be here as well.
All
Just
right.
met the tormentors.
Oh, okay, all right. Do we need to add you to the retreat agenda then?
No, we're going to do it before.
Okay, all right. All right, any other questions for Ms. Humberg? All right, moving on to consent items B, C, and that is it.
Before we start, can I ask
Yes.
just a parliamentary question?
Yes, Mr. Fredericks.
Just a parliamentary question. I'm assuming I was excused at the beginning of this meeting. Does that prevent me from voting or taking, even though I'm tardy?
I mean, you were excused, but no, you're here, so.
Okay, just want to make sure.
I don't know, he's tardy.
Pretty big tardy. Thank you.
All right, consent items B and C are on the table.
Move to approve consent items B and C as presented.
Second it.
Moved by Councilmember Humber, second by Councilmember Rounds. Will clerk please take the vote?
Councilmember Plaza?
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Councilmember Benjamin?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds?
Aye.
Councilmember Humber?
Aye.
Councilmember Frederick?
Aye.
All right, consent items B and C have been approved. The time is 8:04. Going to recess for 10 minutes. Yeah, I'm going to that one. The way we're down. Okay, one thing I failed to mention during my report this evening, and I keep coming back to it. I'm sorry. Mrs. Rounds mentioned let's see here, back. Let me get back on it before we start getting into discussion, just so you're all well aware here. Oh, I thought they were on here. Are they not on here?
What you would,
The two grants that we received.
yes, they're on page
they're on
3.
Public
Page-
Works report.
Which one? I'm sorry.
Under Public Works report.
Public Works. Oh, under the report. Under the report. Gotcha.
The one
Gotcha.
that we
Gotcha.
couldn't see?
There we go. Yeah, the one we couldn't see. So, and to Ms. Coleman, I know she's not here this evening, but I did want to speak to this evening just to discuss a little bit of the state of the city. Ms. Coleman, sorry. What's that?
Miss Grant.
Ms. Grant, Ms. Coleman, the grants. We're talking about grants and Ms. Coleman. So Ms. Coleman actually applied through her reports throughout 2018. She's discussed the multiple grants that she has applied for. Not knowing if we're going to get them or not, and some of them we'll find out in the summertime and periodically throughout the year. One of the
Letters that came.
Okay, gotcha. So all of council is aware, Ms. Coleman applied for 2 grants for Westcott from exit 22 on Westcott to the railroad tracks, and then also another grant that would repave from the railroad tracks to Sherman Way. We found out a few weeks ago that both those grants were awarded to the city of Woodland that will total about $2.5 million or so, which is good. That's a great thing. One of the challenges we have, though, is Ms. Coleman only budgeted in 2019 for one of the grant matches of $125,000, not expecting to get both grants. So the difficult conversation for council, and I'm sure Ms. Coleman will be bringing this forward since it hasn't been budgeted in 2019, is the second grant match of $125,000. Currently, the city does not have those funds available to accept that grant of $1,132,794. So without those matching funds, we are unable to accept that grant at this moment. And I know her and her team and Mr. Boyce and Mrs. Rip are all scrambling, trying to figure out where we're going to come up with that money. So it's possible that council will see an amendment come through for that second grant, because we'll more than likely we'll have to pull that money out of our reserves account, which is our savings, our rainy day account, if we want to keep it. If not, we will have to decline that little over $1 million grant. So I did want to speak to that tonight, and I expected that Ms. Coleman would be speaking that this evening, but I did want to mention, I thought it was up for action items tonight, so I apologize for not bringing it up sooner. Just so council aware, we're doing the best that we can. We're doing our work. Ms. Coleman's doing a wonderful job. All the departments are doing a wonderful job, but this is one of those conversations that we've been having over the last few weeks, and council's been aware of some of them, and some of those conversations that will be coming during our retreat in January of how we're going to move forward and what's a priority and what's not. And this is just one of those items that is just unfortunate that we may have to give back. So, moving on to action items. Action item D is on the table this evening. We'll authorize renewal of the CIAW 2018-2019 insurance. And I'm assuming that's insurance premium. Is that correct? Insurance premium.
Move adoption, or actually authorize the renewal of the CIAW 2018-2019 insurance renewal.
I will second that.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Rounds. Councilmember Fredericks.
Ms. Rip, can you tell me what the history is that they look at? What are we looking at? 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? What's the history that they're going back to determine what the rate is? It's 5? Okay, and in those 5 years, I know the city has had several lawsuits that have been that were previous administrations. Sorry, not
Thank you.
Not this
Thank you for
administration,
clarifying.
but previous administration, that the insurance company has had to pay out substantial claim amounts, and I'm trying to understand that and go to show that those have an impact on insurance rates. I have never seen, since I've been here, a 40% increase in insurance, or 37.5. I'm rounding up. Was that part of the discussion in renewing? Because I have a hard time believing that all of the members under this agreement that are paying into this agreement are getting a 38% increase.
So, the city of Woodland is a member of the pool, and we are assessed both a full rating, and then also they take into consideration our claims loss history. So in 2018, we had actually closed some claims. One was recently this year, and so that brought our liability claims for 2013-14 up to $550,000. And the city paid the deductibles based off of those, so we didn't incur that whole cost in our pool. And so that put us up into what they call a Tier 3 rating. And we will continue to keep that Tier 3 because it'll actually drop off next year because of the age and the openings in 2013. So I believe there were 3 separate claims at that time. Most of them were very large dollar amounts. And of the total history, we have a little over $1 million, and $828,000 of that occurred in 2013-14. So the other years, there were some small losses, and then we also had our city hall flood that was also incurred in 2017.
But most of these, is it safe to say that most of these claims that were paid out is a risk management issue, or in this case, maybe a lack of risk management?
I don't think that's my place.
That's not your place to answer on that?
I would defer that question to Mr. Boyce.
Mr. Boyce?
I tend to agree with that. We've, since Mayor Finn has come on and I've come on, we've been trying to make sure, especially in reference to HR issues, that we're analyzing these before action is taken. We have a pretty good management team in place now. Folks who know how to handle situations when they come up, or at least know, hey, we need to make the call, put our heads together to determine how to deal with the situation. So that change has been made. I don't know all the circumstances with the cases that were settled in, or that came from 2013, 2014 time period. But we are making an effort. We are being proactive. I think you can see that, from that point forward, we haven't had any major claims. You can never guarantee that claims won't arise. Sometimes if you do everything right, you can still be sued, and the insurance company can settle. It's not the city's. The city doesn't have the ability to tell the insurance company to settle or not settle, or for how much. So we are trying to be proactive. We are trying to make sure HR issues are handled with a team approach. And we are consulting our labor attorney when necessary. And so far, so good. I feel very comfortable with the team we have in place.
So if you look at our 17-18 history, we're 16,000 workers on property and uninsured motorist.
Right. No, I raised the question because the council a few years back made what at the time was a very difficult decision on whether or not to bring on a city administrator. And part of bringing on a city administrator is to help with the risk mitigation of these types of actions. When you leave it up to, and I don't mean this disrespectful, but when you leave this up to a part-time mayor who's responsible for running loosely administered department heads, these are the kind of things that happen, that you end up paying lawsuit amounts off because things aren't necessarily followed. And that's not a knock against staff. Staff does the best that they can. But when there's not one person driving the organization to ensure that we have these processes in place and that they're followed, these are the types of costs that the taxpayers get to pay when that happens. So we are paying, in my estimation here, we are paying for the past sins of not having someone who's driving the ship. And that's what we're paying for tonight. It is when we talk about the revenue that the city brings on board, what's the property tax increase? That doesn't cover any of this increase. I mean, I don't even know what the dollar amount is. Correct me if on the, I want to say it was $15,000, $16,000, very small amount. That's what we're paying for here. So these increased costs associated with, in my mind, poor management practices that I don't blame the previous mayors. I don't blame staff. What I say, it's the system at the time that the council set up for us to be governed under. And that's one of the things that I keep coming back to, is that I think that we're in a much better spot as far as mitigating risks to ensure that some of these things that happen aren't happening anymore. And I know that for a fact that we have a lot more processes in place to prevent some of these things that, in my mind, should never even gotten to that point. So that's the only thing I raised. I appreciate, and I know it's an uncomfortable conversation. It's like, oh, we have to have this conversation. But we need to have an understanding of, hey, we're paying for an increase in our insurance costs because of the way we chose as a city to run it in what I would call on the cheap. And is it really cheap? We're paying for it now. And so that's the only thing that I would say here with this. And obviously, it's not like we have a bunch of choices as it pertains to insurance. There's not a lot of players around, so we have to do what we have to do. So thank you for allowing me to walk down that dark path.
Yes.
So I also wanted to point out that while there was an increase in the liability portion, that was about $32,000, there was also a $22,000 increase in our property because we did add on a number, mainly the fire station. So that increased that premium as well. And then our tier 3 status, again, we were told we'll go back to level 1, I think it is for next year. So we'll see a decrease in that. And then also we have some options for looking at a little bit higher deductibles if we wanted to self-insure a little bit, that ranging from 5, 10, and 25,000. Our broker is recommending not to go above 10, but we could see some savings there, so they're going to be quoting that for us. And then also our current deductible right now is 1,000 on general liability and 250 on some of our automobile claims. So we'll have that opportunity for staff to possibly have a savings if we decide to go with a lower deductible, or excuse me, a higher deductible.
Ms. Rip, the building that the old fire station is on Davidson, how is that evaluated? I don't even know what the current use of that building is today, now that the fire department is no longer there.
So they came in and did an evaluation of that for us. We do have replacement value based on the square footage of that building. And other people's address it.
So right now, if I remember right, the replacement value is set at about 1.4 million. So that's what the coverage is right now in the building. Well, the assessment.
I was going to say, can we follow up with the assessment of that, please?
So we did have the building assessed and taken a look at, and the value of the building, because of the fact that it's not watertight, the state of, I don't want to say disrepair, but disrepair of the building, it was deemed that the property value for someone coming in for a commercial enterprise, most likely folks would raise the building, demolish the building, and use it for a building site. So the appraiser basically looked at the value of the land itself and didn't include the value of the structure because there were so many issues associated with the structure. So,
And I can't recall if we have demolition costs associated with that, bringing that building down. Do we know what that is?
I don't.
Okay.
I hope to have the discussion during our retreat by then. Currently, right now, if I can jump in real quick, Mr. Fredericks asked what is currently being used for. It's currently being used for archives right now, and we're getting ready to have an auction for surplus. So right now, that's staged in the Bay Area. And once those items are gone, which will be in a few months, I would hope. I don't know about the archive portion of it, but
I thought you were auctioning off our archives.
Sure, why not?
They're lost and they're secure.
I was going to say, yeah. But that is a discussion that council will need to have, whether or not we want to retain the property. I don't want to, which we'll get into that in the retreat, but I don't want to leave another abandoned building downtown. So if we're going to keep the property, I think we need to come up with some funding somewhere to have it removed.
So we did
if
have
that's
the
the case.
option, we did have the option of lowering the limit we wanted on there. That we still could do that. They could give some credit back, but right now it is at.
Yeah, I'd be interested in looking at the finance committee on those options and reducing that the amount that we're covering with that. I mean, there's no sense in, if I'm driving around a 1980 Camry that I've paid off. I just want to be covered if, I hit somebody. So I don't think we need to have a whole bunch of insurance on that building. So I think that's something.
Depending on the difference, basically.
Yeah.
Of what they charge us if we lowered it and what it would
Sure.
be. Because I know we've got an older vehicle that I was going to take the full coverage off. It didn't make that much
Yeah.
difference,
Right.
but, so we need to find it.
Right.
Let's find that out at our
Be
finance
worth
committee
looking.
meeting.
Be worth looking if you could share that at the finance committee. That'd be great. Thank you.
Mrs. Rounds.
No comment.
Further discussion. Will the clerk please take the vote on action item D, authorize renewal of CIAW 2018-2019 insurance premium?
Councilmember Rounds?
Aye.
Councilmember Benjamin?
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza?
Aye.
Councilmember Hubbard?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Frederick?
Aye.
All right, action item D has passed. Moving on to action item E, authorize renewal of Propel broker services for 2018-2019 insurance.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Rounds. Councilmember Fredericks.
Apparently, we need someone to help us with that. That's what this does.
Councilmember Rounds.
No comment.
Further discussion. Seeing no further discussion, will the clerk please take the vote on action item E?
Councilmember Hubbard?
Aye.
Councilmember Frederick?
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds?
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza?
Aye.
Councilmember Benjamin?
Aye.
All right, action item E has passed. Moving on to action item F. Ordinance number 1425, Public Utility Tax on Water, Sewer, Garbage, Recycling, amending Woodland Municipal Code 5.20, final reading.
Move adoption of ordinance number 1425.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Humberg. Councilmember Fredericks.
I'll defer my comments to let everyone else speak.
Councilmember Humberg.
If somebody could show us another way to cut, to make what we got work, I'd be thrilled. Because raising my taxes isn't what I want to do, but I also want my city to be able to do the things they need to do, and that's what happens.
Further discussion. Councilmember Benjamin.
Over the years in the budgeting process, it's been, I'd say, a difficult process. And what we end up doing is cutting expenses because there's no way to get additional revenue, to the point where we're not continuing to provide the services that we need to provide as a city. We've depleted reserves in some of the funds, streets, for instance. The parks are at a point where we can't water for the grass because there's not enough money in the fund. When we look at the list of equipment that 10 years ago needed to be replaced, it's the same today because none of it's been replaced yet, and yet we're still having trouble meeting the budget. We've cut about as much as we can. We have grants that are available to us that we have to match funds for, and those funds are not available without providing an additional source of revenue. This does that, and while no one likes to have to increase taxes, and someone's going to feel when that happens that they're bearing an unfair portion of that burden, there are no better options available to us at this time. Other cities have done it in a much more extreme way than we have, and it's a place where I think we need to go because there isn't a better way to do it. We can't continue to do it the way we have in the past.
Mrs. Rounds.
I'm really struggling with it because it's just another increase on our businesses and our individuals. I've thought about it an awful lot, so I'm at this point, I'm not looking at it favorably. So I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Okay. Mr. Plaza?
I'm not going to harp on this. You guys all know how I feel about it. But I agree with a lot of what Councilman Benjamin said. He's right about all of it. And at the same time, I also agree that we can't keep doing the things that the way we've been doing them. And unfortunately, not just in our city, but a lot of cities, the way they've always been doing things is when they don't have the funds for something, they just raise taxes. If this was something that we properly educated the citizens and our local businesses on the necessity for raising taxes and allowed them to vote on it, I'd be all for it. But imposing a tax and forcing it down the throats of our businesses and citizens, regardless of the reasoning, is something I just can't get behind.
Mr. Fredericks?
I appreciate the comments that have been made. This is certainly not easy, and if I would say if we were in Olympia or Washington, D.C., I would be on the no side of this. However, we are in Woodland, and we define through the members of the community, the voters, the citizens, they have put us here to make tough decisions, and this is a tough decision. I think this is my 10th budgeting process that I've been through, and I have, I've gone through our $5 million general fund budget, which is approximately that, and I have made cuts to it every year, or even small ones, $40,000, $50,000, we find $100,000 here. I've gone through and I've done my best to try to ensure that we're not inflating the budget for anything that is, would be considered a questionable expense. I've gone through, I've looked at the history, I've challenged when we've come to a point where it says, hey, on this particular line item here, you went 50,000 2 years ago, 50,000 last year, now we need 85. I've challenged on those, and in some instances, okay, it makes sense, we got a one-time charge coming, but in some instances it doesn't make sense, so we've cut back to where we were at. I would say, after going through this again, we are in a position where, are we really saying that we're going to give up a $2.5 million project because we're not going to, because we don't have the revenue to pay for the match? That's what we're saying. And to me, that doesn't make any sense, that we would be giving up that grant because we don't have the matching funds. To me, that doesn't make sense. I am in complete support of any member who wants to come here and say, you know what, I'm against it, I don't want it, and here's my list of things that I would like to cut. Here are a list of items where I think we could cut. We could look at every single department in the city and say, you know what, we're going to run it smaller, we're going to cut services, we're not going to have, I could pick a policy in every department, and I could say, this is what that will save you. But on the other side of that savings are the unknown costs associated with whoever's doing business with the city. If I'm a developer and it takes me a long time because I want to cut in Mr. Goddard's department, that doesn't make any sense. I've got 49% of the community saying that they're willing to pay for a property tax increase for additional police officers, yet I'm finding it difficulty as a policymaker that I can't even keep the lights on. You saw the increase tonight for the insurance. That's a considerable increase. You see labor costs going up year after year after year. Now, again, I don't think Olympia does much to help us there. So yeah, it's a tough choice. And even if this thing passes tonight, I am all for looking at this again in January and saying, hey, what do we want to cut? What do we want to do differently? But every time we cut, there's the ramification of, all right, now this isn't going to get done. Are you okay with that? We don't have to offer 24-hour policing. That's another thing we could just say, hey, maybe we tell the clerk's office, you guys, you're gonna have to do with one less clerk. Okay, if we say one less clerk, who's gonna cover the counters? Who's gonna answer the phones? Who's gonna put out the business license? Who's gonna do all that? There's a ramification for every decision that we make. And this is not something that I take lightly. And I agree with Mr. Plaza that, you know what? We gotta be very mindful. This is the second property tax increase that I have supported that is outside the normal policy or property tax of the 1% every year. The first time we did this, the council came together and said, you know what? Our fire department, we cannot continue to go down the path we're going. It's not working. And so we passed a 6.5% utility tax, and all that money went and was directed to that contract. And guess what? It's not covering it anymore. The revenue, the expense has risen faster than the expense. And so, if we're going to cut, then show me what do you want to cut, and I will make it a priority for the finance committee to put that on our agenda and carefully weigh that. And I would carefully weigh that, and I think it's important that we have a citizens group take a look at that as well and understand and have them make a recommendation to this council supporting those cuts, because they will have significant ramifications to the citizens of Woodland. So, tough decision, but I think it puts Woodland on a more stable financial ground, which is what our responsibility is as policymakers to the city. Either way, through cutting or increasing taxes, that is our responsibility. And there are tough decisions either way. And I completely understand the folks that would vote no on this. I get it. I understand where you're coming through. There will be ramifications to the small business owner. There will be ramifications to the people that are having a difficult time trying to determine whether or not they're going to be able to pay rent or their medical for the month. And now they're going to have to pay an increase in their utility tax expense. I get it. It is a tough decision to have to make, but we are responsible for those tough decisions.
Mrs. Graham.
Well, I hope everybody understands that we all live in this community too. We own our homes. And I know when I'm a single person in my home and maintaining, and you open up a tax bill and like, oh my gosh, well, I guess you don't do something else to make up the difference to pay it. But I agree with what Mr. Benjamin is saying, Mr. Fredericks. We have thought about this a lot. And, where are the cuts going to come from? Well, there was a point in time that I remember when the police department didn't have the money to run, and there was, at times, nobody on duty. I lived through that one, and it wasn't cute. So, even though we don't like to do it, I think it's a necessity. We've got some big money out there that we could acquire to make things better, to bring more people in. Then maybe it can be adjusted at some point to something else lowered. Who knows? There's an unknown factor in there too. But we are trying to make the best decision that we can, and we're not taking it lightly. So, but I'm in favor of doing it.
Anything further? All right, will the clerk please take the vote on action item F, ordinance number 1425, public utility tax on water, sewer, garbage, recycling, amending Woodland Municipal Code 5.20, final reading.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza?
No.
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Councilmember Benjamin?
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds?
No.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Action item, ordinance number 1425 passes 5-2. Action item G, ordinance number 1424, 2019 final budget, final reading.
Can I make a motion that's might be a little bit different than what is being proposed here? I'd like to adopt ordinance number 1424 and allocate an additional $130,000 paid out of the 301 general reserve to match the grant that was not budgeted for in the process.
Allocate how much, I'm sorry?
I have 130,000.
Motion on the floor to approve ordinance number 1424 and to allocate an additional 130,000 out of Fund 301 to
Do the matching.
TIB grant. Okay.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Chapman. Councilmember Fredericks.
Just a big thanks to staff. Especially want to say thank you to Mr. Boyce. I know he worked hard on this budget as well, so I appreciate the efforts that were taken there. Certainly by staff. Staff did a lot of work in this as well. It is refreshing. This is the third budget process that I've been through that I have been provided a balanced budget, and it makes it a much easier task when we're not starting off $500,000 in the hole, having to figure out what changes we're going to make. It creates a very messy process, and I know I will not put any words in Councilmember Humbard's mouth, but I'm sure she could agree. She's been through a few of these difficult budget processes before, so I'm very thankful that we get these balanced. It makes it just a lot easier and less headaches. So thank you to everyone for that.
Councilmember Chapman.
This resound the same. In fact, yeah, kudos to staff for the last several years of making a balanced budget. It's not easy with what money we have, doing what we can do, but we're doing forward with it, and hopefully some other decisions we make can make it a little easier. Not as easily, but every little bit forward helps a lot.
Further discussion? All right, will the clerk please take the vote on action item G, ordinance number 1424, with an additional allocation of $130,000 out of Fund 301 to the TIB grant match.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Benjamin.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza.
Aye.
Councilmember Humbard.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
All right, action item G has passed. Moving on to action item H, ordinance number 1426, Port of Woodland, Guild Road, Industrial Park Phase 2, binding site plan, first reading.
Move adoption of ordinance number 1426.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Rounds. Councilmember Fredericks.
It's a very lengthy pile of paperwork. Just want to thank whoever was able to put that together. My legs fell
Please
asleep.
raise your hand.
That was the abbreviated version.
Oh.
Oh, hey, thanks.
Was that it?
That's all I
Okay,
got.
Councilmember Rounds.
I just think it needs to be done so we can get more businesses in the community. That's going to bring in more revenue for the city to operate. So I say let's get it done as fast as we can.
Further discussion.
Well, yeah. Well,
Mrs.
Oh,
Rounds. Stand down, Fredericks. Mrs. Rounds, you're on the floor.
I am.
You've got the floor. Sorry. Miss, what'd I say? What'd I say?
What kind of round, Graham?
Oh, Mrs. Graham, sorry. Mr. Fredericks threw me off. Did I say that?
Yes, you
God,
did.
I'm sitting right
Twice.
here, too.
But that's all right.
I'm sorry, let's start over.
That's okay.
Mrs. Graham,
Yes.
you have the floor.
I must
like I
say,
can walk in
this made hours of real interesting reading on Saturday. And I thought, oh my gosh, there's that many departments, and wow. But when you get down to item 12, it's all summarized of all those other pages that you were reading. And, yeah, it just needs to be done. And bless their hearts for doing it.
What did I say?
I don't know what you're.
God, I don't. Mr. Fredericks.
Oh, hey.
I don't even know that I said that. And I'm
I
sitting
always
right
appreciate
here.
the summary, so thank
I
you for that.
appreciate it.
And I don't know if the Port of Woodland would be interested in helping us with a grant match. That might be another conversation for another day. But I too agree that we need to move forward on this.
Further discussion. Seeing nothing else, will the clerk please take the vote on action item H, ordinance number 1426?
Councilmember Plaza?
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds?
Aye.
Councilmember Hubbard?
Abstain.
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Councilmember Benjamin?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Frederick?
Aye.
Parliamentary question, does Ms. Sumber have to state why she abstained?
It's best for
Yes.
the record.
I work on call for the port.
Thank you. Ordinance, or action item H, ordinance number 1426 passes 6-0.
Yes.
Or is it?
thank you.
All right, passes 6, 1 abstain. All right, moving on. Before we adjourn before I ask for adjournment this evening, I just want to say that I'm very proud of staff and the budget that was put forward this evening. I know that I sit here and I take all the credit for a balanced budget. I'm over here looking at Miss Keene saying, "That's me. That's right. What's up?" I'm doing all that.
We all know better.
I hope so. We have a very talented team of individuals. Yes, Mr. Boyce.
And I wanted to acknowledge the clerk's office because they do a ton of work on
Yes.
budget.
Yes.
And
They do.
it's-
They do.
Yes.
The devil's in the details, and that's where they get put together.
I
Absolutely.
know Ms. Rip spends a few hours in it every year.
Just a couple
Maybe
minutes.
a few hundred.
Yes. But I made it my goal after sitting through the 2015 budget out in the gallery that those discussions would not happen up here and that would happen on staff time. So I'm very appreciative and very proud of the fact that we've been able to deliver 3 balanced budgets.
The reason I have a 5-head now is the 2015 budget process.
Oh, is that why?
I used to have a 4-head.
Come to the moment of the agenda for adjournment.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 8:54. All right. Merry Christmas. Are you not going to be here next week? Oh, you on the 17th?
It's Christmas month.
Oh, it's Christmas month.
Oh,
Christmas
Christmas month.
Say goodbye, say Merry Christmas.
Just goodbye, Merry Christmas.
That's right.